Dream Warriors! Thank you for joining me. It is day 27 of the 31 Days of Dread, the Dream Warriors annual podcast event where we do one horror movie a day for the entire month of October. And I'm so happy to have you with me because we got Train to Busan. A lot of people seem to like this movie. My buddy Mark likes this movie. And we're going to dive right into it after this intro. So hey, thank you for joining me. I'm Peter. This is Peter. I'm your boy, your host, your go-to guy for all things horror. Somewhat horror expert, horror aficionado. I wasn't this way. If we go back to last year's 31 Days of Dread, the 2017 31 Days of Dread, you'll find that I did a lot of complaining about watching all those horror movies and how they kind of mess with my I felt like they mess with my consciousness in a very weird way, because it put me I couldn't put myself in a state to watch that many horror movies. And last year, almost every single movie I saw for the first time. And it's not that this year I haven't watched all the movies, but we did do some of my favorites this year. And horror was always a weak spot when it came to my understanding of film. And the 31 Days of Dread is really a way for me to, spread my wings, for lack of a better term. But, if it's 31 Days of Dread, they're bat wings. And to really delve into the highs and lows, and like the sweet middle, because I believe horror has a sweet middle, and unlike sci-fi, of a genre, to really see how people deal with multiple tropes, themes, ideas year after year. And one of the baselines that we've uncovered this year and established is that many of the tropes still used today in horror came out of the 1931 to 1932 Universal horror movies, and those templates are still used today. And that comment right now leads us right into Train to Busan. And but before I really roundhouse and jump into this movie, I do want to say something. So, Dream Warriors is full of contributors. There's constant dialogue. See, so here's the crazy thing. A lot of the contributors for Dream Warriors. Oh, jeez. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I have my phone. My phone's on silent. That's my 5 a.m. wake up call. just to give everyone an idea of how I run the Dream Warrior studio, because we're relatively all day and all night here. So a lot of the contributors for Dream Warriors are not always on the show. These are people who contact me via Twitter. They contact me via Instagram. Some of them are close personal friends of mine, which I'm about to jump into. My close friend Mark. And I say close friend because you don't know who someone is until you fight them, and that's a line from Matrix Reloaded. And like by that I mean, Mark is a true contributor. He is the obsessive type, maybe to a fault, but it's I view Mark as Dr. Oakham from Independence. I can't make an Independence Day reference without laughing to myself, but he is Dr. Oakham, in Independence Day, and I would say even Independence Day Resurgence, because it's the same character. And it's so well played and brought back. Hey, say what you want about Independence Day Resurgence, the original characters are brought back completely intact, and they are the characters they were in the first movie 20 something years later. But Mark and I always when we're talking, and which is somewhat challenging, because given he has his full schedule and lots of responsibilities. Mark has a level of responsibilities that will challenge a person getting anything out of life for themselves. And and this is something I see in a lot of people where they put everything they have into others and they don't work on themselves, or when they begin to work on themselves, it's maybe a little too late. And Mark just has a lot going on, but he is considered one of the long-term contributors. My relationship with him sparked the idea of a podcast that ended, and him and I went through a pause period, and Norm and I started the podcast. sat down with a snowball microphone and rock and roll, rock and roll. So Mark's enthusiasm and just the idea that I was able to share, something with him when we reconnected, that we were actually had like a commonality, and we both were very familiar with 3 o'clock comics, 12 o'clock comics. I don't even know if those guys are still around anymore, but there was a couple comic book podcasts, and that was my entry point into the art form. Where I wasn't reading comics too much. I was going off of their recommendations, and there was like this cabal almost of just guys that were like, maybe drinking, having fun, doing the podcast, talking comics, really going into a deep dive on something like the history of what they were reading. And around the time of the Watchmen movie, that's where Mark and I reconnected, and we had like these shows in common, and it was great. So things happen in life. Mark really at that point hit a I don't want to say he hit tragedy, because I do feel like he got out. It may not have felt like that for him, but by that I mean, the relationship with him ended with a female, and I wholeheartedly believe, because I did at one time was dealing with this woman for a website, and you can see a lot of a person's nature through their dealing with them on a friendly, casual business sense, where like you're volunteering a lot of your time and self into a person just because of who they know. And a lot of times people are amazingly grateful for that. You give them 5 minutes, they make you feel like you're giving them 5 hours. And, I don't think any of that was reciprocated during my exchange. But anyway, so Mark kind of like became single, we'll say. But I do believe he got out. Like he got out on top on that one, because a lot of times, again, you don't know who someone is until you fight them, like for real. Hey, look, a lot of my beliefs with relationships are very much known throughout my friends. How I believe relationships are strong, how I believe they go on, and I'm very vocal about these things. Not so much here on the podcast. If I'm sitting down with someone, most likely, we get into those things, because it becomes a little bit of a it's like Dream Warrior. Someone is like of a Peter like audio log, and so a lot of times when we go through relationships, literally go through them, you don't really feel like you know the person until you fight them. And this goes with, intimate relationships or friendly, that Mark and I have. And I really don't feel like Mark knew this woman until he had to fight her on the exit of their relationship. And, just knowing what I know about her. And even if Mark is, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If Mark is 50% lying to me, let's just say yes. The other 50% that could be true is scary. But so anyway, going on tonight. So Mark is pretty much like back into the mix. I love it. I love that he is, look, he's not 100% always available via text message, which I don't understand how anyone's not, but whatever. It comes, it goes. But, we still have somewhat of a dialogue. And one of those dialogues is Train to Busan. And he we wanted to talk about this movie at RetroCon, which kind of didn't happen. And I did want to analyze some of that with him to why we did not record in the hotel room. But anyway, so RetroCon like comes and goes. We don't talk about this film, but at the time though, I didn't see it, and my sheer intent was to maybe do a swerve because we like swerving here in Dream Warriors, and to sit Mark down, and maybe for the first time for Dream Warriors, one of my ideas was to speak with him about a movie I had yet to see, and maybe calculate if it was going to make me see the movie differently, receive the movie differently. Like I never really did that before, and I was really curious on if it was going to have an effect on how I saw the movie. So a couple of days go by, I watched the movie, and like I could go through the actual text messages, but I'll just go off of memory. Um, you know, maybe I'll hit the plot real quick. So the plot is there's a zombie outbreak. These chemical guys are doing chemical things in the laboratory experiments. We don't see it. It all happens like off screen. And then there was like this zombie outbreak in South Korea, and this guy is trying to take a train with his daughter to somewhere, and they're trying to go to Busan, which is I think it's 1.5 million people live in Busan in South Korea. South Korea, it's one of their more prominent cities. I would say, like, comparatively speaking, it might be like if New York is New York, so that could be like Seoul. I would say like Busan is probably their Chicago. If you just needed to have like a relationship like in scale, it's also a port city, I believe, which is makes it a consumer driven like important. See, most port cities, like here in Philadelphia, they're very important. Port cities usually drive consumerism, and this is true for New York, LA, and Philadelphia. And we're probably the three biggest cities, I was thinking, in the world that truly drive consumerism. But anyway. Enough of that. Let's talk about zombies. So, Train to Busan is essentially a zombie movie where a guy and his daughter are trying to make their way back home. And so we like it, and that's it. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. It's people on the train with zombies. So I started watching this movie, and I text Mark. We're cycling here, everyone. Try and keep up. And I say that for me. That's a reminder for me, not for you. Yeah, and during this, it's like, okay, I immediately had a flashback. I stopped watching The Walking Dead. I think it might have been episode 3 when they were convinced. I don't know if the show ever took this back, or if they've retconned this, but I just thought it was the stupidest, most ridiculous thing. But they were like, because you have to have a hook, I guess, for zombies. So, like, you have to have them different. In Walking Dead, the zombies operated through smell. So 2 of the characters were like, hey, if we cover ourselves with blood and walk around like a zombie, the zombies are going to think we're fine. Duh. And they do it, and they walk through like this. They were like, I think in like a tank. So, and they go through like the bottom of the tank, and they walk through this crowd of zombies, and whatever. And I'm like, this is potentially the stupidest thing I've ever seen. For bringing the zombie genre to like a realistic form, which again, for even Walking Dead, like what you're measured up against is the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead. Like that is still the marquee, because that movie, number one, introduced a science to the zombies. You were able to follow. You knew what the stakes were. It introduced a new type of zombie, and it introduced a new type of hyper chaos that the zombies created when they would like arrive. which again, it's WWZ and even this movie. Like to where the zombies move and act a certain way, and for some whatever reason, we have things like explosions and fires happening with zombies, and these are some of the things that we're told uh, are believable when we watch a zombie movie. And the more I watch zombie movies that have this massive chaos that splinters out of their actions, like the less believable I think it is. It doesn't come through. It doesn't thrill me. It doesn't capture me. And I'm trying. Like even with Train to Busan, there were so many times where I'm like, you know what, this is solid. Like like it is everything. But the zombie stupidness I could not move past because the movie presents itself as serious. It would be different if it was a little bit more self-aware with the ridiculous ideas, very much like the Marvel movies. How Marvel is self-aware that these are dumb superheroes with dumb names, with ridiculous powers and whatever. And like the Marvel movies have like almost like a whatever gravitas to their presentation. Okay, so I can't watch The Walking Dead at all after that episode 3, and I'm watching this movie, and the hook for the zombies, spoiler alert, not that we do spoiler alerts here, is that these zombies have they operate through sight, which now would make the zombie invasion last only 8 hours until the sun dropped down, which is completely dumb. Okay, and now if they cover up something like a glass partition door, a glass sliding door with newspapers, they're safe. And and this is a unlocked door, by the way. So you don't even have to lock the doors. If the zombies can't see you, you're safe. So early in the movie, we establish that if you just blindfolded the zombies, if you put a bag over their head, which works when the train stops at the at the one train station, we're safe and we're fine and we're going. Night of the Living Dead worked. It worked because we had this thing called the Venus Comet that was reported on the radio, and the dead rose, and that was it. And there was this eeriness in believing that, in believing that this is something otherworldly that's operating the zombies. And when we're in that context, we can have these things be like true killers. When we add science to the creation of the zombies, we're now creating excuses because we're close to science, like as creators, like and we have to be able to explain it. So it's kind of like the 31. What is it? I'm forgetting that the one zombie movie. Where the if the blood drips in your mouth, you get it. It's it's just one of those things where you just want to watch a movie for what it is. And the logic kind of comes in and it almost like pulls it out. So I texted Mark. I'm like, the gimmick for the zombies is one of the stupidest things that I've ever seen. The movie itself, Train to Busan, who I think I'm just going off of memory, 11 million people saw this movie. It was a huge hit. Edgar Wright loves this movie. Mark loves this movie, and that's the reason why we were talking about Mark earlier. See, so now we have another contention point with Mark and myself. We don't agree on this movie. We don't agree on Devil's Candy. So I don't know what is happening. Mark and I used to be so aligned. I mean, we have it documented. I mean, there's times where we saw movies together and really had the same through line between the two of us. We both love Speed Racer. Like, how rare is that? We don't seem to in agreement with anything else, and it's I don't want to say it's troublesome to me, but it makes me question life, and like, like how much does your taste change through time, through other circumstances. Like have I become more lenient, and Mark is more stringent on his take, and I like that's kind of like an interesting Siskel and Ebert type scenario, because we do have maybe like the foundations of where we're like seeing these, how like the foundation of our lenses, so to speak, is has shifted, and we can't deviate from it. And that does bring me delight, that because I really do like seeing this. But yeah, so Train to Busan is, we're going to get right back into the movie, but Train to Busan is a well-made zombie movie. I would say it's one of the best, like of the well-made zombie movies. It's well shot. The zombies do have rules. They utilize the rules throughout the entire movie. It has characters you want to survive. It has characters you don't want to die. It has characters you do want to die. So it has all of these things, and it has pressure because we're on the train. Look, trains in movies always freaking work. This goes back to the Midnight Express, the John Voight movie, okay, with Eric Roberts. Trains in movies freaking work. It's awesome that now that there's a zombie train movie, like, could I watch this movie again? Could I appreciate it again? 100%. Did I add this movie because I wanted to disagree with Mark? Certainly not. I would love to sit down with Mark and do an adulation episode, and maybe discuss the things we liked about it more than anything. But yeah, it's almost like a sticking point with me now. Like, it kind of gets to me that Mark and I don't seem to be lining up, and then there's another movie that him and I don't line up on, and we'll talk about that later too. We'll talk about that on another episode. But we do have 3 movies now. I'm only listed 2. So, like, coming down to it, like, what would I tell someone to watch this movie? 100%. This movie is a full recommendation. Like, if we're going to get into it, and you're like, Pete, how? Like, you just spent 20 something minutes trashing the movie. Correct. But I think as a audience standpoint, it would be like the same as me not being able to recommend like Armageddon or Independence Day, because they're just fun movies. And like, you want someone to have, like, do you want someone to have fun, or do you not? And like, that's the question you answer. And you would have fun watching this movie. The average person would completely have fun outside the subtitles, because you gotta read, watching this movie. And that was a part of it too, is I did want to do another foreign movie. The last 2 years I thought I was going to do more of a foreign horror movie focus, and I haven't. And maybe going into November, which is a few days away, like, maybe I'll sprinkle in some of those foreign movies that are on my list and some of my favorites, because I do believe for some reason horror transcends culture and language, unlike comedy, but horror does. And it's interesting because it's the only genre that kind of does. Action movies don't hold up, and they don't resonate when they're translated, and they deteriorate. They kind of break down through time. John Woo's The Killer, A Better Tomorrow. Like, I'm looking at you guys, it's still it's funny. But yeah, so look, but everyone, Dream Warriors, day 27 of the 31 Days of Dread. I stared at my coffee the entire time while I'm talking to you. So let's just pick up our cold mugs together, have a swig of the good old Java magic. Let that Java flow through our veins. Let the magic hit our pupils and our gray matter and brighten us up, and hold up our mugs and cheers to productivity and conversation. And thank you so much for joining me for day 27. It was a pleasure. You can find this movie on Netflix. Please watch it. And if you disagree with me, please let me know. Oh my God. Hey, everyone. Yeah, really. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this journey because it really hasn't been easy. And look, maybe like a part of the Dream Warriors sub commentary outside of all the movies and like everything else is that it's somewhat of a life blog. It's a Dream Warriors. Thank you for joining me. It is day 27 of the 31 Days of Dread, the Dream Warriors annual podcast event where we celebrate all things spooky, horror, gory, Halloween. It's the 31 Days of Dread, and we do one horror movie a day for the entire month of October. So we got a good one here, or do we? Everyone says we have a good one. So let's get into it.